Oscar Jenkins was fighting alongside Ukrainian soldiers last year when he was captured by Russia.
Oscar Jenkins, 32 years old, live in Australia and Ukraine.
Oscar Jenkins was 32 years old. He was from Melbourne. He went to Melbourne Grammar School, a prestigious school there, and went on to teach as a private school teacher in Melbourne. He was a passionate cricket player who played at the Turak Paran Cricket Club, where he was very well regarded by his teammates, who said he had a heart of gold, that he was a very well-liked and generous member of the team. Several of his fellow players have said that he was a deeper thinker than your average cricket player. He lived in China, teaching there for quite a long period of time, but then did go to fight in Ukraine. Now, he did not have any military experience before this. We don't know a lot about how he ended up being there. I've spoken to colleagues there who say that they met in March of 2024. So he'd been fighting for almost a year when he was captured by Russian troops. Some pretty disturbing footage emerged on social media just before Christmas, which showed Oscar Jenkins being interrogated by Russian troops.
I'm Australian.
Name?
Oscar. Меня зовут Oscar.
Полностью. Полностью. Оскар, дальше, блядь.
Oscar Jenkins.
Здесь делаешь что?
No, солдат. У Китай.
Командир кто твой?
9 років, учитель. Я у Австралії student.
So this sparked a lot of concern at the time about his whereabouts. He was dressed in military camouflage with a dirty face. He looked pretty thin in the video and confused by what was happening to him. And that was the last we had heard until these reports emerged that not only had he been captured as a prisoner of war, but that he had been killed while in Russian custody.
Officials are scrambling to verify reports Australian man Oscar Jenkins has been killed by Russian soldiers.
An Australian man has been killed by Russian forces.
I spoke to a fellow soldier in the battalion that Jenkins was fighting with in Ukraine. That's the 66th Mechanized Brigade. And he went through the story of how they met in March 2024, that he trained Oscar Jenkins how to be a soldier, and they fought alongside each other and became very good friends. He said that he and fellow soldiers found out on January 9 that Jenkins had been, in his words, executed by the Russians. That's what they believe happened, his fellow soldiers, and they said they have had that confirmed by other soldiers a day after. He was very upset about this. We haven't known a lot about what Oscar Jenkins' motivation was to go and fight in Ukraine, but the sergeant who trained him told me that he wasn't here for money or glory. He was here to help Ukraine. And he said, if I could say one thing about Oscar, he was the first in and last one out. He always made sure that everyone else was taken care of. A significant number of foreign troops from around the world have gone to fight in Ukraine. They are integrated with the operations of the Ukrainian military.
Let's go, boys, we're good.
It makes sense to train them together. Obviously, different languages. They may not speak Ukrainian or Russian, so it makes sense for foreign fighters to work with each other.
Get down, get down, get down!
Australia has provided support in terms of military aid, weapons and equipment to Ukraine, and financial support. But it has not been the advice of the Australian government that people should go, especially bearing in mind, like Oscar Jenkins, they may not have had any military experience before. It's believe that 8 Australians have been killed in the fighting. So that's pretty significant given how far away Ukraine is. The Oscar Jenkins case stands out because he was the first to be captured, and he would certainly be the first to be executed if that is true by Russia, and that would obviously be a breach of the laws of war and would be taken very seriously by the Australian government.
If there has been any harm caused to Oscar Jenkins, that is absolutely reprehensible, and the Australian government will take the strongest action possible.
If confirmed, this would be an extremely serious event. It's been over 70 years since an Australian prisoner of war has been killed. There's a lot of evidence of Russian war crimes since the war in Ukraine broke out in 2022. This would stand out for us because it involves an Australian. And that's not something that the Australian government could just let pass by, even though they don't want Australians to go and fight.
Oscar Jenkins, 32 years old.